So I'm going to talk about the throat and the neck specifically, and what that involves in martial arts. Now, for example, the Chinese systems, particularly in Chinese medicine, discuss, and Qigong discuss touching the tragus of the ear in order to enhance energy within that area of the neck, and there's various massage techniques involved in doing so. In yoga, the tragus is closed off. It's one of the gates that's sealed. One of the numerous gates which is sealed off when the senses are closed. The throat is a powerful center in yoga. It's called the Vishuddhi chakra, and it allows certain perceptions to take place without actual necessary physical activity taking place. Above all, the neck is said to represent listening. So, for example, there's a certain perception capability that can be developed just by listening inwardly to yourself. So, for example, just by listening, closing off the senses and listening to the inner sounds, it's possible to hear the voice of silence, which is a kind of perception, a bodily awareness, and a perception of reality that perhaps isn't possible if the noises of the outside world are contributing too much. And so in this way it's possible to see without eyes and hear without ears. The ears are connected to the neck, and I'll come on to this soon, but there's certain reverberations from the pit of the stomach, the Hara center, which can be sent upwards and perceived in this center here. So the neck is, in martial arts, it's stretched upwards. The chin is descended down slightly, and the abdomen is pushed down with the neck and chest, so that the intestines are pushed down, and there's a sense of interconnectivity there. So another way of dealing with sorry, I'm getting used to this sound levels. I apologise if it comes at you much too loud or not loud enough. It's just I want to discuss this fairly quietly and just contemplatively, whatever the word is, without shouting out. I just want you to be able to listen, if that's what you're able to do with this. There's just certain sounds in martial arts can produce activation of the physical centers, the throat included. The throatier the chanting or shouting, the more activity in this region there will be, the more intuitive sense will be brought in. Of course, it connects with the loudest reverberations are said to happen at the pit of the stomach, near the Hara center. Through certain practices of interconnectivity, you are able to perceive these deep reverberations and send them upwards, which is another way of saying linking heaven to earth. The yoga systems have developed certain exercises to develop this area. The Chinese systems aren't so well known for this, but there is evidence that they are very much aware of the same thing. For example, the Door of Muteness is said to reside in the neck. The Door of Muteness means silence, which is to do with inner listening and outer silence. Stillness is needed to pass through the Door of Muteness. There's plenty more references in the Chinese systems, which I'll come on to in a bit, but basically the Door of Muteness is another way of saying the heightened perceptions of the Vishuddhi chakra, which requires silence and space to be able to perceive what's not there, what's not obvious. It says in the Chinese systems you must leave everything behind to enter the Door of Muteness. Now, this is quite clearly a reference to silence, nothingness, leaving behind the physical aspects to look for something deeper. If you, for example, look up, that's another way of thinking, and the answer will come to you if you do that under pressure or something or whatever. The snake rises like this, and it stretches the neck so that it can know what to do in all kinds of situations. So this is why there are various snake systems and references to the snake in the more Eastern traditions. The Door of Muteness is said to be the bridge between the energy and breathing, the chi and the breath. The spiritual embryo is said to reside in the Hara center and the solar plexus, and the interaction of this energy with the breathing is said to happen in the throat area, the interaction of yin and yang. Throat means filter, so filter of impurities or physical energy with the mind and body. So it's the 12 doors. The 12 doors of muteness of the Chinese systems. They say lock the gate behind you when you've entered nothingness. The yoga systems have developed a throat lock, which sounds to me like it's talking about the same thing. The throat lock is basically, if you do there's a locking of certain areas of the throat which hold the energy there and draw it there. So that can be initiated by just breathing into the hand and holding that sensation, or reaching into the pits of the stomach via the neck and interconnecting the body. There are many ways of doing it. There's other references in the Chinese systems, the Golden Palace and the Jade Hall. The 12 doors are said to exist in this area. The Jade Hall is the palate of the mouth, which is obviously here. Golden Palace is the lungs. So the 12 doors of muteness exist between the two. So the yogis developed a way of linking the two to the brain, heaven and earth, by touching the roof of the mouth with the tongue. which I'll come on to later. Breathing deeply with the lungs, this energy was said to be able to be transferred to higher regions. There's a 12-storied pagoda in an illustration of the Tang dynasty. This is, to me, seems like the 12 doors I was speaking about earlier. In the 12-story pagoda, this is at the level of the throat on this illustration. You should look it up. I haven't got it to hand, but it's it's around 1,500 years old, and it's a picture that shows various symbols. It's a bit like a map of a country, but at each level there are symbols for the abdomen, the bull, symbols for the heart, water, spreading, and symbols for the mind and brain, wiseness. And one of these is a 12-story pagoda, which is the same as saying the 12 gates, the 12 doors of muteness, it seems to me, which symbolically represents the throat and the tongue reaching into the brain, linking heaven to earth, because there's also a man, a wise man in this picture, who is blue in colour, blue eyes, reaching into heaven from earth. Reaching into heaven from earth means touching the roof of the mouth with the tongue. So the blue, he's got blue eyes, it's said in this text of the Tang dynasty. I think it's about 1,000 years old. You can look it up. I'll try and include it in later posts. Well, the blue eyes are relevant because Shiva, the exponent of the Vishuddhi chakra in yoga, has a blue throat. Blue meaning harmony and peace, and which are aspects of stillness and silence. So that's very relevant here. So when we say the voice of silence, there's an intense feeling of aliveness and energy, rather than just nothingness. These vibrations from the pit of the stomach are said to transmit to the brain through the tongue touching the roof of the mouth. So there's various references in religions and spirituality of bringing heaven to earth, earth to heaven, as it is in heaven, so it should be on earth. Darkness into light. Darkness, the subconscious, is the horror center, the pit of the stomach, transmitting to light of the brain. Eureka flashlight moment. It's the same as bringing the subconscious elements of the gut to the level of consciousness of the brain. Finally, the solar plexus distributes more widely, that's why the energy needs to be brought there. The aura center is very concentrated, so the higher up the energy travels, the more mobile it is. The Vishuddhi chakra, or the 12 doors of muteness, are very high up and mobile. Therefore, there is a certain mobility but less stability. So it's a case of linking stability of the hara with mobility of the upper chakras and centers. But first of all, you need foundations of strong foundation before you venture higher.